going on, man? Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can, but let me switch this so it's going out the way I need it to go out.
Oh, cool. Is it an echo? I remember the last time we had an echo.
I know echo.
What does your T-shirt say? Solutions
oriented. You can't be a business owner and not be solutions oriented because you're met with problems every single day, man.
Every day. There's never a day in business that you don't have a problem. If you think you went the day without having a problem, you weren't working hard enough.
And then also, if there were no problems, we'd have no business.
Exactly.
So I forgot which episode this is because I recorded an episode.
I think this is 105. I thought you did 104 last week, or did you?
I did 104, but I already have 105 recorded.
Oh, okay.
I gotta drop that. So
this should be 106 then.
106.
106 episodes. Yo,
it's kind of crazy. But the cool thing about it, I tell people, like, it's like mentorship. So, yeah, we're giving the people value, but we're also making really, really good connections with good people and learning a lot, too. Like, I'll never forget, I was thinking about this on the way home. Like, a big part of the reason why I realized you could buy a home for so inexpensive in the Midwest is because I had that interview with Sterling Scott. And Sterling Scott owns, maybe 500 properties now. But when I talked to him, he owned about 150. And I was like, how did you get to 150 properties? And he told me, he's like, homes out here like 15 grand, man. I was like, $15,000 for a house. And from there, I started to dig into the Midwest and stop looking at all these overpriced, crazy properties out there in Atlanta and crazy prices in California. I'm like, if the goal is rental income, I need to go where I can get as many doors as possible for as little money as possible.
Yeah.
So
the Midwest is the place because, in the industrial Northeast and the South there, they're well built and they weren't hit. The thing about the Midwest is they were hit so hard by the auto industry. They were hit so hard by the auto industries, and those urban centers are just like vacant almost.
Right. But it's wide open for opportunity, man. And that's what I keep telling people. I'm like, if we could get on one accord, we could literally build a thriving African-American community in Detroit if we would just get smart about it. Because for me, it's not just the rental properties. They have factories out there that are vacant. They have storefronts that are vacant. There's so much. We could literally anything we want, and it's so affordable. The only downside is it gets very cold, but it's just like, why can't people see this? Why can't people see the opportunity there? And what's going to happen is we're going to sleep on it, and then somebody else is going to come in, and then they're going to, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like the struggles can't ever really overcome just because of people's mindset.
That's funny. That's funny. That's one of the points that I have. Like you talked about investors' mindset. I have 3 points. It's mindsets matter most, how investors think differently, and relationships with money. You're hitting from my points.
Yeah. Cool. Let's kick it off. I don't want to steal your thunder. Let me go ahead and intro. Let's make this kind of like a quick episode. Let's because I don't want to drag it out. And I think that sometimes the quick episodes are cool. And so then I might be able to drop this as like a 0.5.
No, that's cool. Actually, I was kind of worried. I was like, I don't think I can stretch this an hour. But if you want to do it quick, I think I can stretch this. Not stretch. I think we can hit it in 20, 30 minutes, really.
Let's do it. Cool.
Okay.
This is the Todd Capital Millionaire podcast. This is episode number 106. My name is Charles Oglesby, also known as Todd Millionaire. I'm the founder and the director of the Todd Capital Investment Club that now has over 300 members, 200 people on the waiting list. And I'm proud to announce that we are going to be opening up to new members via subscription. So what that subscription gives you access to is going to give you access to just the forums where we're talking about different investments. It's going to give you access to the insight where we're analyzing different investments. And it's going to also allow you to participate in the things we're buying. And there's just true value in that. I've known so many people that have joined our club, started their own club, joined our club, started buying property, started buying trucks, started buying all these different things The true value, and I always tell people this, is not just the ROI. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Like, don't focus on the ROI, focus on the education, focus on the exposure, focus on the experience, focus on the access. That's going to truly change your life. So make sure you leave us a rating or review, preferably a 5-star review. And again, thank you all for tuning in. The purpose of this podcast is to share the stories of successful African-American investors and business owners so that people can hear the stories of successful examples that exist. I promise you they exist. We want people to learn that business and investing are the true keys to financial success and generational wealth. Today, we have a special episode. It's not necessarily an interview episode as much as it is a conversation episode. We've already talked to Jamaal Vetose before multiple times. You should know him. He is the president of Todd Capital Investment Club. Like I said, we have over 300 members and growing. Can't stop, won't stop. Got to continue to scale. Welcome to the show, man.
I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure. Us having a conversation. We have so many conversations offline that is so fruitful. And whenever we get a chance to record and get it out to the masses, not just the group members, but people who just listen to our podcast all over the country, I always think it's a fruitful and productive conversation that should be shared widespread.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's so crazy, the impact. There are people who I get a DM a day, maybe more. And they're like, man, I listened to the podcast. It changed my life. I'm so thankful that you put this out. And they're like, I'm going to be on the show. Just watch. I'm going to be on the show. And I tell people, like, that's why I did this. I did it not to make myself, not to promote my name, not to make money. I did it for the culture, man. And I think one of the things that I was explaining, I was talking to my wife about this earlier, and I was telling her, like, business is service. Business is improving things for people. So we all want to improve things for our people. We all want to do things and help our people have a better existence. You don't do that through begging. You don't do that through protesting. You do that by starting a business. And it shouldn't be seen as like, I'm going to go make a bunch of money off a lot of people. Like, it's like, no, I want to help feed people. They need food. I want to feed them. Oh, I want to give people transportation. They need to get transportation from point A to point B. I'm going to help transportate or give them transportation. Like, that's what business is. Business is solutions. And that's why I got this cool shirt on. Check out www.mindsetmattersteam.com. They actually set up their LLC, and then they started their business. They got these shirts. They sent me a shirt. So it's so crazy seeing it come full circle. Just give value, guys, man. It always comes back to you. Give value to the community. Elevate your community, and I guarantee you it'll come back to you. That's not the conversation we're going to have today. Today we're talking about the investor's mindset. Why is that important? Because everybody's doing it these days. Everybody's buying real estate, buying stocks, buying options, starting businesses. And that's great, but you have to have the right mindset in doing so. So can you outline some of the topics we're going to talk about today, Jamaal?
Yeah, and I definitely agree. The investor's mindset, and you and I talk about this all the time with some of our members, and some of them, with the way they come through the email, not having the right mindset and the right, integrity about it. And the 3 points I felt like we were going to hit today was that mindset matters, how investors think differently, and people's investors' relationship with money. And I thought those were 3 pivotal things. And I have some sub points that I think we'll hit really quickly, but those were the points that I had. So if you ready, I'm ready to jump into it.
Let's do it, man.
All right. So with the first point about mindsets matter, I know it sounds like an easy concept, but this is the most important concept of everything. Warren Buffett once said that without the right mindset, it's difficult to be successful. And people don't have the right mindset, especially in regards to investing, because they have this preconceived notion of what the market should be and how it should operate, instead of facing the pragmatic reality of what it is and the cycles and how to have the right mindset to endure and everything like that. One thing I've learned about investing, and over my 10 years of investing personally in the last almost 3 years, 3 years with this club, I realized that mindset is 50% of the success. Like, I have to be zoned in to the right mindset, whether that be strategy, whether that be research, whether that just be enduring the volatility of day-to-day news and market and international things like that. And I think people say this a lot, but they say it callously or cavalier without understanding that your mind is a supercomputer. Like people, the human mind, God designed it to be a supercomputer. So if you program it correctly, it can be a tremendous weapon for you to achieve your goals. So you have to program your mind to have the right mindset when it comes to investing, because if you don't program it, if you just go into it haphazardly, or if you just go into it not really having a strategy, there's no saying that if you don't know where you're going, any path is going to take you there. That's how investing is going to. If you don't know what you're doing, if you don't know your strategy, if you don't know if you're short term or long term, if you don't know if you're playing options, you don't know if you're short selling, you're just going to do anything, and you might have some random success, but more than likely you're going to have massive failures because you haven't set your mindset up to know that I shouldn't react to this because that has nothing to do with my strategy, or I should dig deeper into this because maybe I need to pivot or adjust. So mindset is an important thing, because a lot of people have this mindset that, oh, I'll just throw money into the market and it'll grow. That's not how it works. You have to have a mindset, because you can't, there's over 5,000 stocks in the in some of these like the Russell 2000, the S&P, the Dow. Those alone are 2,300 securities on the market. You can't just pick up a random name and say, oh, I'm gonna throw it there and the money's gonna work. You have to have a mindset to know this fits my strategy, this fits my wealth building, this fits my family's, strategic generational strategy of how we're gonna amass wealth and all that. So mindset, I find it to be the most important thing, but is also the thing that people rush over the most. People always think that money is the most important thing investing, but it's your mindset. The mindset is going to be, like I said, 50% of the battle. And if you don't have the right mindset, you can have $1 million, and I guarantee you your investment strategy will not function properly.
Right. Yeah. It's so funny. Jay Morrison made that comment. He's like, if you don't have the right education, right mindset, I could give you $100,000 and you'll just fumble it. You'll it's like that quote. It says, if you give a rich man $1,000, he'll come back with $100,000. If you give a poor man $100,000, he'll come back with some True Religion jeans and some Jordans. And one of the things that I think is important, and one of the points I wanted to make, and I had this conversation on the Ericka Williams show twice in different forms. She said, what do you look for in a good investor partner? I said, I look for the most important thing is the right mindset, because we come across so many people who they think rich people are investors, so I need to invest so I can become rich. But they don't look at it as the process of investing. They look at it as an event. And the Millionaire Fastlane book talks about that. Like, it's a process versus an event. A lot of poor people are event focused. They're like, I'm pouring out, I want to be rich. Not I'm pouring out, I want to go through this process so I can become rich. It's like if you're an athlete, you have a process. You don't just become LeBron James overnight. You become LeBron James by going to the gym every day, by getting the right dietitian, by being consistent, by being focused. He's 20 years into his career and he's still kind of where he needs to be. And so it's a process. But one thing that I talked about with Andre Hatchett is something we call mindset hacking. And mindset hacking really just, it takes the focus off of you. So many people are investing so they can spend money. They're investing so they can go to Vegas. They're investing so that they can go to Miami. And the way that you hack that is you got to think about somebody bigger than yourself. You got to think about your wife. You got to think about your kids. You got to think about your parents. You got to think about people who are bigger than you, because investing can be emotional. The market's going to go up. It's going to go down. You're going to have troubles. You're going to have issues. And if you're only focused on the money that you can spend, you're going to make mistakes.
Yeah, and that kind of takes me into the next portion of it, where is how investors think differently. It's funny because if any person right now listening to us owns a few shares of a company, technically they're an investor. Like, you own a few shares of a company, technically you're an investor. But to me, what a true investor is someone who allows money to work for them with the intention of increasing their net worth. Like, that's a real investor. Like, just because you own shares doesn't mean you're an investor. You own shares of a company. Congratulations. Anyone can do that. But a real investor knows that you're an investor when you're working to make the money increase, when the net worth building is the goal, when it's about, not just this step, but 10 steps ahead, where you're pivoting and you're ticking and building on top of everything. Well, like to say the compounding interest. It's funny you said about that thing about you give $1,000 to a rich man, he'll come back with 100,000. There was a study, I can't remember who did it, but there was a study a couple of years ago that said if you took all the wealth in the world and gathered it together and redistributed equally to everyone, that in 10 years' time, that those who had little or no money would be poor all over again, and those who had been rich before would have accumulated some more wealth and gotten back to the point that they were 10 years prior. And I thought that was profound because it's about the mindset. It's about, we talk about it all the time. I know that our current president, years in the 90s, he was thought to be bankrupt. Some of his real estate deals, especially those in New Jersey, Atlantic City, had went gone. He was in debt. They thought he would never recover. But it was the mindset of how he did business that he knew that I had been rich before. I'll figure out a way to get out of that and become rich again. And to his credit, he became rich again. And that's how investors think differently. Buffett did the same thing because early on in his in the early .com boom, Berkshire Hathaway got hammered because he wasn't getting into the tech stocks. They thought he had lost it. All those returns he had made for people in the 80s and 90s were gone. And, Berkshire was kind of teetering. And people just thought he wouldn't survive. And then when the .com bubble burst, he reallocated his assets and bought companies for the cheaps and all that. And, that fed into his philosophy and how he thinks differently. It's like I believe he always says that I would rather buy a great company at a quality price than a bad company at a good price. Mm-hmm. And that's how the wealthy think differently. It's about how do you attack the situation from a standpoint that other people's won't or are afraid to. How do you get to the point where you're taking the risk or building a foundation that other people just don't see? Kind of like what we were saying offline a little bit earlier when you're talking about how people don't see the potential of the Midwest real estate market. That's kind of how the mindset has to be focused here and think differently.
You got to keep that on the low, man. I'm just kidding. So, what's so funny is when, and I think that when you said that we're going to discuss mindset, I actually wrote out a few points to touch on. And those were that each dollar is an employee. You have to think long term. You have to have the mindset of reinvesting your profits. You have to have foresight and vision, which I think is key. And you also have to have patience. So, to kind of touch on those briefly, each dollar is an employee. A lot of us think that money is fun coupons. Money is something that we can spend, but you have to utilize money as capital and not just as cash to be spent on things. I was thinking about this. I'm doing a real estate deal, another one, and I was like, I could be in Vegas right now, but I'm using my Vegas money to buy and rehab a house that's going to pay me $800 a month forever. Vegas isn't going to pay you a dime, but they're still going to cost you the same amount of money. So that same $10,000, $15,000 that you're going to take to go to Vegas and live your best life, that's going to keep you trapped to the job, can also be used as capital to liberate you, and not just you, but your family. Because in real estate or in business or investing, that stuff's going to outlive you, man. And so you got to think about, like, are you making decisions that are going to set your family up, or are you making decisions that are going to allow you to post some great pictures on the internet for 10 minutes and get a few likes? I personally, as a man, I'm thinking legacy. I'm thinking for my family. I'm thinking broader than just myself and how I feel. And I think that everybody should do the same. The next thing I want to discuss, I'm going to kind of skip over some things, but I think that foresight and vision is something I want to touch on. It's something I tell people. I posted something that said ugly stocks, ugly homes, and ugly people are what you need to invest in. Ugly people, I kind of just threw that in. But ugly stocks and ugly homes, like, that's where the value is. You got to see what's there after people. You have to see what's there before people see it. I saw that in Michigan. I saw that in the Midwest market, and now people are starting to see it. If you want to make good money, you got to spot opportunities before everybody else sees it. I'm telling you, Say, for example, you see a house and all they see is this ugly rundown house, but you see what it can be after you put 10 to 15 grand into it. The money is made after you and what they can't see. Because if you go and you buy a property from a seller, a private seller, they can't see what you see. And so the gap is in the reality of what you see versus what they see. That's where the profit's made. The same thing is true in stocks. That's why I buy stocks in companies that people hate. I'm going to buy Habit. I'm going to buy Tesla. I'm going to buy Under Armour. I'm going to buy all the stocks they hate because that's where the money is. The best stocks to buy, though, are great stocks that become stocks people hate when you know they could potentially become good stocks again. So that's one of my challenges for people is like, don't look at an investment as what you see now. A lot of people make that mistake. They hear the good news, they hear the good press, they hear the hype, and they're like, dang, this is the perfect opportunity to buy. And those are the people that lose. Those are the people that bought homes at the wrong time. Those are the people that buy stocks at the wrong time. And that's not how you invest. I was like, there's over improvement and under improvement. You have markets that have been over improved, like Denver is one of those markets. San Francisco is one of those markets. Los Angeles is one of those markets. And you have markets that are under improved. If you are an investor and not a speculator and not a gambler, your money needs to go where the money is needed. Your money needs to go where the money is needed. Where's the money needed? The money is needed in good markets that are struggling for capital. That's the Midwest. That is the inner city. That's South LA. That is Baltimore, parts of Baltimore. That's Philadelphia. And that's where you see people getting the best deals, making the most money, doing the best things right now. In the next 5 years, we're going to see a reverse. We're going to see a reversal from the top of the market in these high overvalued areas. We're going to see all that money reallocated towards parts of South Los Angeles that are being rehabilitated. You're going to see the property values in these areas that are just overinflated because they have no other options. And they're going to say, damn, I don't have to pay $2 million to live on Wilshire. I can go pay $500,000 and live in Inglewood, and they're going to do it. And when that happens, the demand shifts. When demand shifts, the price shifts. That's my rant on the mind.
And that kind of goes into the last point I was going to say with people's relationship with money. And the first thing is I want to know if people have the right mindset. Like some people think money is evil. They hate celebrities and all the flash and all that. And some people just don't think that money is a good mechanism to use. But I have to say to have the right investor mindset, this is key. This is one of the things I wanted to zone in. You have to love making money. Money, you cannot see money as something that's crass and something that's tasteless and something that's, only the evil use money for this and that. You have to love making money, not for selfish reasons, but for those points that Charles talked about, for building your generational wealth in your family for one, for service to your community for another, and just for the betterment of the culture. You have to love making money because you can't make a difference if you can't make an impact. That's a bar. I don't know where that came from.
That's a bar, man. We got to put that on the Instagram, man.
That's a bar. You can't make a difference if you can't make an impact. That comes from me watching your Twitter all day. You've been endowing me. But another thing is, and Charles always talks about this, and it stirs in my spirit. We have to move from being consumers to investors. A consumer asks, how much does this cost? An investor asks, what's my ROI on this investment? A consumer asks what I can buy. An investor asks what I can acquire. Like, what can I acquire as an asset? Like, so you have to change that consumer mindset. I'm not saying that you can't have a nice house, you can't drive a nice car, but what I'm saying is your liability should not outweigh your assets. You shouldn't be out here in a BMW living in the jets in your neighborhood. That's not a good mix. It would be better to have you a nice Honda and a nice $500,000 house that's appreciated 7% over the last 5 years. That's a good investment. So you gotta go from that consumer mindset to that investor mindset. And the easy way to do that is change your relationship with money. Stop thinking you have to spend. Stop thinking because, you went from making $75K a year to $100K, now you just buy more. No, take that extra $25K you're now making, buy a rental property.
Right.
Buy a CD. buy, 10,000 shares in, like Charles says, a company that the market hates, that might be paying you a 2.5 yield dividend to hold it, and then reinvest that. So now in 10 years, that 25,000 has become 175,000.
Right.
And now you can acquire more assets.
What's interesting about changing your mindset with money is a lot of that comes with who you hang around. Mm-hmm. And I want to clarify this because I say it a lot. And like my life changed when I got around like people who are really getting it. Like, right. But not just people who are getting it who are my age. Because it's one thing to be getting it in the moment. It's another thing to get it and still have it. And so I'm looking at people who are 50, 60, 70 because they got it and they kept it. And so if you're hanging around people who are making good money, but they're spending big money, like you don't even know what their life is going to look like 5, 10, 15 years from now. I'm playing the long game. So I never, ever, ever compare myself to my peers. I never look to my peers for guidance. I'm always looking at somebody who's ahead of me because you're going to become 50 or 70 at one point in time. Do you want to live? One of the reasons why I don't really like pay attention to my peers as much is because I don't know how the story is going to tell out for them. I can't make decisions based off of what somebody who is my age is doing because they don't even know. They don't know anything. And so for me, what I did is I got around a successful business owner and I realized like this lady works 7 days a week. Like she might scale back a little bit on Sunday, but she goes 7 days a week. And I'm here to tell you, you work 7 days a week, you will have no money problems at all. If you have money problems and you're not working 7 days a week, there's your problem. Your problem is I need to go to work. If you have money problems and you're content with money problems, then cool. But if you have money problems and you are like, I hate this, I'm pissed off, I'm going to blame racism and oppression, and you don't work 7 days a week, you are a fool. He said, Grant Cardone said, God rested after he built the earth. He rested after he built everything. If you haven't created the world for your family, you don't deserve no damn rest. So anyway, what was I getting at? Oh, another thing that I realized is, yeah, like I said, getting around the right people. So for me, it was getting around that Jewish business owner who still wore the same Timex watch, even though he was making billions. And I think that's really important to change your mindset with money because it's very difficult to change your mindset if you're hanging around the same people, but it's effortless to change your mindset if you're hanging around the right people. I tell people all the time, you can have a casual conversation in the right environment and it'll be more empowering than the most deep conversation in the ghetto or in the middle of the hood where people are talking about whatever. You could be deep. I'll have casual conversations in the law firm at the printer and we're just like giving game. Somebody was like, oh yeah, like I settled this case, so I paid off my car, so I'm gonna go and just do this thing. I was like, those are the conversations I need to have casually, not like forced conversations, not like you got to pay somebody to have a mentorship conversation. Like I have those conversations daily because you put yourself in the right environment. And that's
the
important.
Networking effect. Like people, they overlook that. People, and I'm not talking about the networking that's at, the lounges where no networking really takes place. You guys are just drinking and just might go casually over your career. I'm talking about the real networking where you're talking about what you're doing. You're talking about what you're hearing. You're talking about the perspectives of the market or things that seem interesting in the next couple of years. That's how some of the initial early winners in blockchain before it collapsed made their money because they talked about, oh, I'm hearing about this, digital currency early on. If you can get into it, you can get in it for 0.0 cents. And then you went, and then early 2018, it was up to 20,000 per share. And those early people had long cashed out because they had the right conversations early on and they didn't get caught up in the hype. Like you said, people get caught up in the hype. So they had made the money and got out. They didn't get slaughtered by the market. And that's because they had the right conversations around the right people doing the right things. And that is neglected because people either they don't want to network or they lack the right mindset and personality to network effectively.
Well, I think that's the beautiful thing about the investment club is the investment club is a network of people with that mindset, people who are willing to sacrifice the now for the later, people who are willing to have that conversation, people with the knowledge, people with the experience, people with the exposure. I tell people all the time, like, we have some powerful people in the group, dope people. So the group, and I wrote this blog post about a long time ago, like investing in a club is a lot of things. It gives you leverage. It gives you access to networking. It gives you access to the mastermind effect, where you have all these different people rubbing their ideas against each other and growing. So for that guy who's like, oh, I can make more money outside of the club than anything, good luck, brother. I'm not here to hold anybody captive. If you think you can make more money than the group, good luck. I highly doubt that. Exactly, because I know it works. The average person isn't making 47%. The average person, you want to know why? Because the average person doesn't have the fortitude to stomach the ups and downs in the market and continue to invest. And that's what the investment club makes you do as well. It forces you to invest when you don't want to invest. It's an accountability partner as well. And that's one thing I tell people, like, it's an investment accountability partner. And that's why I know the subscription is worth it. That's why I know that there's a value in what we're doing. And that's why I know that the more people invest into the club, the bigger we're going to do. I was going to tell people this. I was like, if you guys have faith and you believe in the investment club, invest in the investment club, because it's only going to make it bigger and better. It's only going to allow us to have a better website. It's only going to allow us to have an app. It's only going to allow us to give you more valuable information. It's only going to allow us to, like, make you more money. It's an investment. You might think that you're just giving money, but no, it's an investment. It's going to yield you an ROI. It's going to yield you the experience, the exposure, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And like you said, like, the guy who said that, I was like, yeah, but like you're not gonna stomach it the way we were stomaching. There's been plenty of times, like in before we made that 47%, where some of the investment members wanted to get out of a trade. They was like, I feel like it's good, like it's run its course and nothing like that. And we were like, no, I still believe in the fundamentals. I still believe in the executive team. This is a good company and it will turn around. And it really did. Like it turned around and it added to the 47%. The only drawback you and I said is that we wish we had some of those small positions more in some of our more profitable positions. But if those people individually were investing alone, they would have been gotten out of the market. They wouldn't have taken that. But because we were all taking that punishment together, we all reaped the benefit together. And when Charles cut them checks, everyone had smiles and good things to say in the emails and the Slack, because the experiment worked, and it forced them to realize that, hey, I have to follow this all the way through, even when sometimes I just want to get out.
Yeah. I have nothing to say to that. Next topic. What's the next topic?
That's all I actually have for my bullet point. Those, I think, were the three fundamental things that I hit, and I think we hit them well and knocked them out of the park. It's not about the length. I think we gave them good quantity and substance in this.
Right. The only thing I want to add is patience. I was reading this Warren Buffett book, and I highly encourage people to read. Just read books, guys. It'll change your life. And Warren Buffett makes this point about, like, being patient as an investor. And what he was saying is, like, sometimes when you find a good opportunity, you just got to wait for it to become profitable. So you buy this great stock and you know it's a good buy. You know you bought it at the right price. You know there's value. You know there's upside. But the market might not see it yet. Most of the time, if you're doing your job right, you're going to spot opportunities before other people spot opportunities. If you're doing your job right. If you're looking for opportunities and not just looking for what people to tell you to buy. And that's two different things. In the stock market, there are opportunities, and there's also things people just say, this is something you need to buy. And I don't look for the stuff they tell me to buy, because, like the quote says, if it's on the front page of the newspaper, it's too damn late.
Too late.
So my goal is always to find what's not on the newspaper, because it's easy to find what's on the newspaper. Everybody knows that. Anybody can see what they're talking about on Twitter, up and down the timeline, Uber this, Uber that, Lyft that, although I still think those companies have good upside. You got to be patient as an investor. If you get into the investment club and you've been there for 3-6 months, you're like, I'm not rich yet. Like, what's going on? Like, you are playing the wrong game, and you don't have the right mindset to work with this. The people that are working with us are playing 10-year games, 15-year games. Imagine what you could have in 15 years. In 15 years, and one thing I tell people is the time's going to pass anyway. Would you rather the time pass and you're living your best life, and at 15 years you still got to wake up and go to work? Or in 15 years, because you did what you're supposed to do, you're done. And not only are you done, your family's done, because you've built that legacy, you built that portfolio, you built that whole repertoire of assets, of businesses that fund your other businesses. So that's one thing I want to say is, like, just have patience, play the long game, play the 15, 20-year game, play the legacy game. We didn't get broke overnight, and we're not going to get rich overnight. So if
that's the word. That's the word right there. Like some people are in such financial situations that took them years to get in, but they want you to fix it, or they want it to be fixed overnight. Right. It's going to take the same amount of time. Possibly if you hit a little luck, it can take half the amount of time to get out of the situation as it took you to get into it. It is, again, a long game. Like, right. Investments are this. People who are willing to delay instant gratification for long-term stability. Right. That instant gratification, it might feel good in the moment, but it's gone. It's fleeting. Right. That long-term, build and valuation, it lasts longer. You appreciate it better because it came slowly. So I agree with you. Definitely patience is another key for the mindset of the investor.
Absolutely. Very cool. So I'm going to wrap it up. I'm going to ask you those ending questions. What's your favorite business book?
Currently, my favorite business book, it changes the more I read. My current favorite business book is The Originals. It's this great book. Hold on, I can tell you the exact title. It's called The Originals, How Nonconformists Move the World. And it talks about how people who are originals, such as, the Jobs and the Gores and the Buffetts and all that, how they don't think the way the masses think. That this chapter I'm in right now talks about how sometimes procrastination leads to the best opportunities. Sometimes it's not always good to be the first mover because you're building up the industry, and then someone else can come in and take advantage of all the mistakes that you made and do it at a cheaper price. It kind of happens in the pharmaceutical industry all the time. Someone comes up with a rocket, earth-shattering drug, and then when the patent ends, someone comes with a genetic drug for half the price, and you did all the legwork. So that's my favorite book right now because it kind of changed my mindset, especially this chapter about how you don't always have to be the first mover. You just have to capitalize, like you said, on the opportunity.
Right. Absolutely. Who is somebody that you look up to and why?
Still to this day, even though he's not alive, Reginald F. Lewis is still the goal. Like, he's the idol. Like, to build the first $1 billion business, the fact that he built it in Baltimore, so I'm a Baltimore bred, so that's always, but how he, did it methodically and did it when other people thought that, it couldn't be possible. And the title of his books, Why Should All the White Men Have the Most Fun? Like, that's just a classic even today. And I recommend, if you haven't read it, it should be in your library. It should be something that you read more than once. You should always reread it and find a new jewel in it. So he's always going to be the idol. But if I had to pick someone who's living right now, Diddy is kind of the idol. Like, he's kind of the business idol. That's because the diversity of his businesses. So, yeah.
I don't answer this question much, but I would have to say, and it's kind of cliche right now, but somebody that I look up to would be Robert Smith.
Yes, most people didn't even know who he was before the Morehouse graduation.
Right. The thing about Robert Smith that I like, and he made this quote, he said he started his own company because he figured they would not hire him at their company. And when you look at the numbers versus getting hired at their company or creating your own company, the guy became a billionaire creating his own company, but he probably would have been a millionaire at their company. And so, like, that's always been my principle. I posted this thing. It's like they counted me out, but I came up on them or something like that. Like they said like something along those lines. But like we coming up on a lot of people, and they look up and they're like, "Oh man, like can you give me some advice on this? Can you I don't believe in jobs, man. I don't believe in artificial ceilings." I was having a conversation with Jamaris. They just started a mobile wing and waffle company. It's a family business. Nice. He posted something about how their business allows them to give their kids high-level exposure that they would have to bust through ceilings to get to. He was like, we got the ceilings now. We are building the ceilings. And that's the power that comes with ownership. It's not just the money, guys. I always tell people all the time, stop focusing on the money and start focusing on the power and the ownership and the influencing control. Because everybody over here who gets up there and they start protesting about cops and they start protesting about people being nice to them, they're not talking about money. They're talking about power, control, and influence. It just so happens to follow the money. But the thing is, it doesn't follow you spending your money. It follows you using your money to own things. So Reginald Lewis, or not, of course, Reginald Lewis. Robert Smith is somebody that I definitely look up to. But the other thing that I want to talk about with Reginald Lewis is he has this quote. And the quote is that a lot of us, is my favorite quote in the book, is a lot of us think that entrepreneurship is starting something from the ground up when you can still be an entrepreneur and buy a business. And so that was our goal with the barbershop, was to buy a business, not to start a business, to buy a business. And that's just step one. We're trying to do bigger and better. We're not stopping, guys. We're just going to keep going. What does wealth mean to you, Jamaal Vetose?
Wealth means time. I want the luxury of time. I'm not big on flash and possessions, but I want to acquire enough wealth that spending time with my daughter is a priority. You know, spending time with my wife when I have one, I'm not married like Chuck, is a priority. And I work at my leisure, not at my inconvenience.
I like it. I like it a lot. Where can people find you on the internet again?
People can find me on Twitter at Leo Graham Prince, or you can type in my name at Jamaal W. Vetose. You can also follow me on Instagram at Jamaal W. Vetose. And for people who can't spell that, it might be, it is JAMAAL W V as in Victor, ETOSE. You can also find me on LinkedIn as well.
Very cool. This is another episode of the Millionaire Podcast, episode 106. Thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate you. We're going to continue to elevate and inspire the community through content and through investment. My name is Charles Oglesby, also known as Todd Millionaire, signing off.